and that's so great. And to hear like people reacting, like not only that they like it, I'm sure people are listening, and because it's personal and real, they're like, oh my god, I totally feel that. That's something that I do too, or I've been through just exactly this. I mean, think of all the pop songs or even bands that nobody knows of, but songs that you hear, that you listen to, that are like your favorites.
Right.
They're ones where it's like, I know that emotion. I've been there.
Exactly.
And the development gal was like, not only is it connecting with the audience, but also you have a constant font of that information. Forevermore, you can be producing that stuff because it's you and it's real. So that's so awesome.
It can be difficult to let yourself connect with who you are in that way too.
Yeah.
That you can like suppress thoughts and feelings and emotions. And that I think a lot of like my progress as a songwriter has been getting rid of the like bullshit that is like, oh, let me invent what I think is a good song, versus channeling true like who I am and like inspiration into something that is like outside of like what I could manufacture on my own. It's the difference between like somebody being on stage trying to be funny doing improv versus like actually being in the moment and like quality is like a byproduct of like just all this other random stuff, right? It's not from that strong intentional rational part, and it's really hard to get there.
Yeah absolutely. I mean, if we see anything on network television, it's business minds trying to tell us what's funny. And you're like, oh no, that wasn't a good joke at all. Like I watch commercials all the time and I go like, oh, there's so many comedians who need jobs. Could you have hired one?
Yeah. Or like, let's. Do we want to make a new movie or do we want to remake an old one?
Yeah, right.
Like, oh,
that's such a business mind. Let's redo what's already been done. And I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about when you're like, when I first started writing songs. Because like when I first start writing anything, like when I teach myself how to do stuff, I usually take an existing script or something and then I break it down into what makes sense to me in a format. I've tried to read books where other people tell me what the structure is, but sometimes I don't understand what they're talking about, so I'm like, okay, just show me a perfect script in your opinion and I will identify what I think is happening, and then that way I can write it where it's like, okay, I'm a page in, this needs to happen and this needs to happen, and it helps me frame it. But those ones are like first drafts. I'm like figuring out, I'm like coloring by number, essentially.
And I think to get back to like education, which I think is like such a big thing, is like when you're trying to teach somebody, you get to this point where things get really subjective and it's really hard to judge if this is like coming from the right kind of place or not. And what kind of ends up happening, especially in like public education system, is like it becomes like, well, we're going to ignore all the subjective stuff and we're going to create this rubric and we're going to pay attention to things like grammar and like syntax and things like MLA formatting, and those are things that are really quantifiable and really like systematizable, and so you end up kind of like completely missing the point of like creative writing, which is about, are you expressing like real genuine feelings that matter to you?
Well, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to be a devil's advocate to structure and say that the reason why I think they require such things like that in professional settings, whether it be a research paper that's going to be published in a book, a medical thing, or even something that you're writing to submit to the New Yorker or to whatever, like, that has a specific format you have to do. They even say, if you write a screenplay and you don't put it in the right format, immediately they will throw it away. It could be the best story in the world, they're never going to read it. Yeah. The reason why that is, and also the reason why the education system has a lot of rote bullshit, is because life has a lot of that bullshit in it. And you have to be able to deal with that. Like, one thing that my husband's always talking about, how homework is just to teach kids how to have a day job.
Fill out paperwork.
Because someday in their life, they're going to be working at a place and they're just going to fill out a spreadsheet, putting A into B and changing numbers and doing small math equations and or just typing stuff into lists. and that's going to be their job because that's a lot of jobs. And so they're training them to be able to do that because they have to do that. And it's like, that is smart and sucks at the same time. But at the same time, when it comes to these professional writing situations, to insist upon a structure is to say, in order to be a professional in this field, you need to both be creative and be able to obey rules, even if they seem ridiculous to you. Because think about the film industry.
Right.
I mean, and not only what we've learned recently about the film industry, but just in general, how to do a film, how you have to, like, pitch and meet these people and glad hand to this thing and go to these people and then you have another meeting and it's like, what is happening?
I would like to make a distinction between, like, filmmaking as an art form and then mainstream filmmaking as a cultural and
100%
machine where it's like, this is the thing that the social construct of, like, what it means to be a filmmaker in this time and location, right?
Right.
And like, as a musician, I definitely, like, you see a lot of, like, what happens when a band you really like gets signed to a major label and then their album kind of sucks. And it's like, the album kind of sucks because they're all of a sudden, all the things that made them quirky and cool and different got mashed out because they do things, quote, the right way. And it's like, oh, you can't record drums like that. We got to do it this way. And it's like, oh, you have to compress everything, like, a lot because it needs to be really loud. Or like, oh, there's not a good hook in this song, so we're going to cut it. Yeah. You know? And it's like, at some point...
you're right. Yeah, I mean, they do ruin that.
Yeah. And, you know, of course, I don't want to go as far as to say, like, write something incomprehensible, so long as it's pure feeling in it, right? And
if you're making it yourself, though, I mean, filmmaking as an art form, like, if you and your friends are putting together, you never have to write an actual script.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely filmed a number of things that were essentially just notes.
Yeah.
Or,
see,
like,
I'm way into that kind of stuff, and I don't know.
I like it too. I mean, I like all the forms. I like being able to be a, fly on the wall for any sort of artistic things.
Yeah.
How'd you learn the music? Like, you were doing high school theater, but did you also take lessons? And what's your instrument or if any?
Yeah, what happened?
What happened? No, what's the new exciting thing?
Oh my god. I got really into Pink Floyd in middle school.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I kind of grew out of it, which is sad because they're like a cool band, but now I'm like, oh, I can't do it. Because it was just like, it's too much of, like, who I was in middle school whenever I listened to it. I'm like, oh, I can't do it anymore.
Oh, that's so funny. My husband's obsessed with Pink Floyd.
They're great. They have so many good albums, but anyways.
He doesn't listen to the podcast. It's fine.
But anyways, no, I listened to Pink Floyd, and that was the first time, like, The Wall, which is this, like, double album, and it's really fucked up and weird, and it's just basically, like, just completely different from any other kind of music I had experienced up to that point, which had been like pop and radio garbage and whatever. And to be like, oh my god, this is, like, life-changing. You know, it did change my life, and I just got real into it, and it was such a, like, sense of, like, purpose and meaning, and, like you said, that, like, I could relate to these things really significantly, and I was like, this is it, this is the thing. So I just got way into music, and you know, I just bought all these albums that were, like, really weird and great. I love Melancholy and Infinite Sadness by Smashing Pumpkins, The Glow Part 2 by The Microphones, In the Airplane Over the Sea by New Remote Hotel. These are, like, the first bunch of albums I listened to, and I was like, oh, yes, this is it, you know? And so it kind of followed naturally from, like, listening to and really resonating with music that I would want to create some myself.
Yeah.
Partially because I had made friends in high school who were music people. I took a photography class with a guy who played bass in a band, and the band sucked, but boy, being in a shitty band in high school is still hella cool.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, really neat. And then I somehow, with the help of friends, bought a really shitty, cheap acoustic guitar and then taught myself. And
taught yourself, all right.
Yeah, I taught myself how to play guitar. I don't know how I got through the first year of flunking around on it, but I just wanted it bad enough that I did it.
Yeah.
And
was this before the internet, or did you use YouTube?
Very much. This is before YouTube, around YouTube, right when like YouTube was coming out. But it was a website called Ultimate Guitar that was a very helpful resource. I also pirated, I think, ebook on guitar playing to like help me out. Yeah. But yeah, definitely the internet was a huge factor in being able to like figure stuff out. And then just learning how to play other people's music. And as a side effect, gotta always make it about education. Because I taught myself how to play guitar, I play in a way that is uniquely and wholly myself. If I took guitar lessons by somebody else, they would have taught out the way that I play the instrument. Because the way I play it is technically incorrect.
Great.
Because and there's some guitarists who are like this. Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. Not too much of a fan of his work, but we play the same way, which is like instead of playing like strumming with your wrist, I kind of like put my whole arm into playing. It's like my shoulder goes up and down.
Yeah.
And like that is like bad technique. You shouldn't play like that.
Sure.
That's not how you play it.
Yeah.
But it sounds completely different, and I get the sound that I like out of it that way, you know?
Yeah, so, absolutely. I mean, you know, you can adjust anything. You can use guitar pedals to change the entire sound. I don't know why you can't move your arm different.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, listen, you can't do it. It's like you can get 3 different kinds of strings. Like, get out of here. You can do whatever you want. Exactly.
Oh, there's so much. When you get to, like, there's so many, quote, rules, unquote, about, like, what equipment is good and, like, how to record, you know, and, like, all this kind of stuff. And it's all, like, I hate all of it, you know? It's like none of that shit matters. What matters is like that you're expressing yourself honestly through this medium.
Yeah.
And if you have the knowledge of like how to make a bass drum sound cool, then yeah. But you know what? Shitting on someone else's work because they didn't mic their kit correctly, it's like I could care less.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Or these people who are like, they're musicians, quote unquote, but they just talk about gear. And it's like this like gear fetishizing and like, oh, these amps that they have and all the different guitars and the best guitars and their technique. And it's like, but who cares? Because what work are you making? Where's the good music, you know? Yeah. And it's like, oh, they can kind of noodle a blues scale.
Yeah.
And it's like, no one cares. That doesn't matter.
I can't believe the number of people who own guitars that don't play them.
Yes. And it's like,
is so wild.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, listen, you don't ever have to play it for anyone else. But actually, no, I actually believe you need to play it for somebody else if you're doing it.
Well, it was hard for me to get to that point.
I'm so glad that you're at this point. Because I really, truly believe that it's like, it's almost, especially right now, like, I feel like it's great that you're doing it right now. Because I feel like if you're an artist, like if you really are an artist in your heart and soul, then it's like your duty to share what's going on inside of you because you're the only person strong enough to have not only the emotion and deal with the emotion and analyze the emotion, but then you are able to take that and communicate it. Yeah. The analysis and communication are 2 parts of living that most people don't have.
That's such a mind-blowing concept that is just like so foreign for, I think, even I didn't really understand. And it's like, I think as a creative person and an artist, you're stuck defending your right to like be who you are constantly.
Sure.
Because there's no money in like doing that kind of stuff. It's like some people make a lot of money, and even then it's like relative. That you could be a superstar, but you're still really not making that much money compared to like BP oil spill people, you know?
Sure. But money is, subject to the country that we live in and the decision on what's important and not important. And right now, culturally, it turns out we've decided that there's too many artists, so no one gives a shit. And that's fine, but I feel like eventually it'll go in and out. I mean, it's almost like, I hope so. You know, it's almost like looking at old historical movements of art And you're like, man, those years when everybody was painting, it must have been totally wild. And you're like, yeah, I guess. Yeah. But can you imagine how many weren't these, like, 50 that we know about? All the rest of them who are like, I'm amazing, and they're painting and painting, and their shit is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's looked at it ever. Maybe somebody bought it then. Maybe they were the #1 seller of all paintings.
Yeah.
But everybody wanted these other ones that were obscure or whatever. Because after the fact is so much different than